Here is your full motivational speech. Listen closely. Something is shifting. You feel it deep inside you. A quiet knowing. A woman who knows herself doesn't chase. She doesn't wait. She doesn't shrink. She simply becomes. And when she becomes, everything changes. Stay with me, because what I'm about to say will take root inside you like nothing else has. If this kind of truth speaks to something in you, something real, something you've been waiting to hear, hit subscribe. Slow, calm, no pressure, but stay, because this channel is built for women who are done with half-truths. Let's begin. There is a man who looks at you and sees your surface. He sees your face, your body, what you can give him. He studies your reactions. He learns your patterns only to predict you, to manage you. And you have met that man many times. He speaks quickly, moves with urgency, says what you want to hear. He performs confidence. But underneath, he is terrified of you. Terrified of what you would do if you knew your worth. Then there is another man, and he is rare. He is not louder. He is not faster. He doesn't sell himself in the first 5 minutes. He sits with silence like it's comfortable. He asks you questions and then actually listens. He doesn't interrupt. He doesn't redirect every conversation back to himself. He notices things you didn't think anyone would notice, and he treats you not as a prize to win, but as a person worth knowing slowly. That man is rare, not because men cannot be that way, but because becoming that man requires something most people never develop. It requires knowing themselves deeply, honestly, without performance. A man who knows himself doesn't need to perform for you. He doesn't need your constant reassurance. He doesn't disappear when things get heavy. He stands in difficulty the way a tree stands in wind, not rigid, not breaking, but rooted. And here is the truth. No one tells women loudly enough. You are not responsible for drawing that man out. You are not the bait. You are not the project. You are not the lesson he needs to learn in order to grow. You are the destination, only for someone already walking the right path. Let that settle. Read it again. You are the destination, only for someone already walking the right path. Most women have been taught the opposite of this. They were taught to be agreeable, to shrink their needs, to make themselves comfortable for him, to hold back too much too soon, to play small so he doesn't feel small. And somewhere along the way, a woman learns to disappear in order to be chosen. That is a wound. And most women are carrying it silently. The 1% of men who truly understand a woman, not just her body, not just her behavior, but the architecture of her soul. Those men were taught something different too. They were taught that a woman's desire is not a puzzle to solve. It is not a code to crack. It is not a weakness to be exploited. A woman's desire is a response, a natural, intelligent, deeply honest response to what she feels is real. When she feels safety, she opens. When she feels seen, she softens. When she feels respected without having to demand it, she stays, not out of need, but out of genuine want. Subscribe if you're still here. If these words are landing somewhere deeper than your mind, somewhere in your chest, your gut, your history, then this is where you belong. Subscribe. We go deeper here. Every time. Now, let's talk about attraction, real attraction, not the kind built on flattery and urgency, not the kind that burns bright and collapses fast. Real attraction is built on something most people are afraid to offer: consistency. A man who is the same on Tuesday as he was on Saturday. That is rare. A man who is the same when he's frustrated as when he's happy. That is rare. A man who is the same when he has nothing to gain. That is rare. And women know this intuitively, biologically, spiritually. Women have always known when something is real and when something is performance. The problem was never your perception. The problem was that you were sometimes convinced to doubt it. You were told you were too much, too sensitive, too emotional, too demanding, sarcam. But here is what's true. You weren't too much. You were simply with someone too small. A woman who is in full possession of herself, her time, her energy, her attention, her softness, her fire. She is not looking for someone to complete her. She is looking for someone worthy of walking beside her. That is a different search, and it produces completely different results. When you stop searching from a place of lack, when you stop asking, why won't he choose me, and start asking, does he deserve me, everything shifts. Your posture changes. Your silence becomes powerful. Your presence becomes magnetic. Not because you've become cold, not because you've become hard, but because you've become clear. Clarity is the most attractive thing a human being can carry, and most people spend their entire lives avoiding it. Because clarity requires looking at yourself honestly. It requires admitting when something isn't working. It requires walking away from comfort toward truth. That is not easy, but a woman who does it, who chooses truth over familiar pain, she becomes someone that cannot be replicated. Let's talk about identity. Not who he told you that you were, not who your past made you feel you were, who you actually are. You are a woman with a history that didn't break you, even when it tried. You are a woman who has made decisions in the dark, without a guide, without applause. You are a woman who has loved people who didn't know how to love you back. And you survived that. You adapted. You recalibrated. You kept moving. That is not weakness wearing a mask. That is strength still learning its name. Here is what the 1% understand that 99% don't. A woman doesn't want to be hunted. She wants to be chosen. Slowly, intentionally, by someone who actually sees her. Not the version of her that performs okayness. Not the version that laughs things off. Not the version she built to survive rooms that weren't safe. The real her. The quiet her. The certain her. The woman who exists in the space between who she was and who she's becoming. That woman, she wants to be seen. And the man who sees her fully, without trying to fix her, without trying to possess her, he is the one she cannot stop thinking about. Not because he's perfect, not because he's the most attractive or the most successful, but because in his presence, she feels like herself. That is the rarest gift one person can give another, the freedom to be entirely real. Now let me say something that might be uncomfortable. If you have never felt that, if every relationship in your life has required you to manage yourself in order to keep the peace, that is information. It is not a flaw in you. It is not evidence that you are too much. It is a pattern, and patterns can be changed, but only when you stop explaining them away, only when you stop deciding that this is just how love feels. Love is not exhausting by nature. The right love gives you energy. The right love makes you more of yourself, not less. Self-respect. Let's stay here a moment. Self-respect is not a wall. It is not coldness. It is not playing games or withholding warmth to maintain control. Self-respect is simply this: treating yourself the way you want to be treated before anyone else does it for you. It is the standard you set in the quiet before he arrives. It is the decision you make alone in your own mind about what you will accept and what you will not. A woman with real self-respect does not need to announce it. She doesn't need to warn anyone. She simply lives it. And the right man will recognize it, not as a challenge, not as a game, as something to honor. The men who don't recognize it, the ones who are threatened by it, who try to chip away at it, who call it arrogance or attitude, they are telling you everything in the very moment they reveal their discomfort. Listen. Don't argue. Don't explain. Don't shrink. Just listen. And then decide what belongs in your life. Purpose. A woman in her purpose is not waiting. She is building. She is creating. She is contributing. She is pouring into something bigger than any single relationship. And that is deeply attractive, not because it makes her unavailable, but because it makes her complete. A woman who has a life she loves brings something different into connection. She brings fullness, not hunger. She brings curiosity, not desperation. She brings standards, not fear. The man who is right for her is not intimidated by that fullness. He is inspired by it. He is challenged, in the best way, to show up at that level, not to compete, but to contribute. Because he has something to bring too. That is partnership. Not two half people finally becoming whole, but two whole people choosing to build something larger than themselves. We are near the end now, and I want to leave you with something you can carry. You do not need to be understood by everyone. You do not need to be liked by every room you walk into. You do not need to make yourself easier to love for people who haven't learned how to love well. What you need, the only thing you truly need, is to know yourself, to know what you value, to know what you feel, to know what you will protect and what you will walk away from, to know the difference between patience and punishment, to know when staying is love and when staying is fear. The 1% of men who truly understand women, they are not special by birth. They became that by doing the interior work, by sitting with themselves honestly, by learning that a woman's trust is the most sacred thing they could ever be given, and they treat it that way. You deserve that. Not someday. Not after you've changed or grown or proven something. Now, exactly as you are, uncertain and becoming, healing and whole, guarded and open, all of it. The woman who chooses herself first, completely without apology, she does not need to chase anyone. She simply lives so authentically, so fully, that the right people are drawn toward the truth she carries. That is the final thing. Be so real that pretenders cannot stay. Be so clear that confusion doesn't linger. Be so grounded that storms cannot move you from yourself. That is the work, not the work of becoming someone else. The work of becoming more fully, more fearlessly, more quietly, you. If this reached you today, if something in these words felt like a door opening rather than a wall, subscribe, come back. We will go deeper every single time because you deserve conversations this honest, every day, not just once. Subscribe, and remember, the right life, the right love, the right version of you. It doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from choosing yourself first, always.